Yeah. Hi everyone, Yathany Yatano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Denzel Curry project, King of the Mischievous South, Volume 2, Florida rapper, songwriter, lyricist extraordinaire, Denzel Curry, he's back.
You're gonna give the guy another 8, aren't you?
And so what if I do? What if I did? What have I done? If that does end up being the case, am I not just communicating to the world that in my view, he happens to be one of the most consistently talented artists of his generation?
Okay, just do the review or whatever.
Okay, well, yeah, he's back. It's been a while since his last record, a couple of years, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. A really important album in the Denzel Curry catalog, not just because of how far he ventured into jazz rap and conscious hip hop, but this record is also a very conceptual and self-reflective record for Denzel, where he really let his fans into the progression of how he changed as an artist and as a person over the years, taking more accountability for his actions and mental health. Because it's important to remember that Denzel is not even 30 years old at the time of me shooting this review, and he dropped his first mixtape at the start of the 2010s, way back when he was 16 years old. So longtime fans have not just had the opportunity, but the privilege of seeing this man through his art become a totally different person over the past decade plus. And one thing that has made Denzel's catalog more and more interesting as he continues to build it is just how multifaceted it is, how yin and yang his progression tends to be, because what kind of Denzel Curry you're getting really depends on the project. Are you getting the dark, moody, high concept Denzel Curry as we had on Taboo? Or is it more of the in-your-face, cutthroat, anthemic, rapid-fire flow type Denzel that we get on a record such as Imperial? Again, depends on the album and also depends on like what the vibe of the last record was. So of course, given that Denzel's previous album, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, was his most personal and nuanced album yet, I'm not really surprised to see that this newest one here is maybe his most grimy, simplistic, and explosive. The record also kind of fits into this greater trend that we've been seeing in numerous lanes of hip-hop lately, where many artists are kind of presenting us an experience that's like a mixtape, but it's actually an album. And what I mean by that is that the sound and vibe of this thing is just so performatively grimy and rough around the edges, because it's supposed to sound like some random low-budget cassette or homespun project that you might come across if you stumbled upon it at, I don't know, some kind of Memphis swap meet in the 90s or the 2000s. And even if it is like kind of nasty on the ears at some points, there's still a lot of fire there. There's still a lot of heart in it. I mean, the entire project starts off with the sound of a cassette being opened or like slid into a tape deck, along with a spoken word intro from Kingpin Skinny Pimp, an underground Memphis rap legend whose 90s output has gained kind of a cult following in the internet age among rap fans who have specifically become obsessed with this particular era of Southern hip hop, which for years at this point in 2024, we've been hearing tons and tons of artists rehash this exact thing and build massive success off of it, be that Lil Ugly Mane or A$AP Rocky or Suicide Boys, just to name a few, because it would take an entire video to explain to you just how exactly this Southern hip-hop revival of the early 2010s pretty much gave us the rap landscape we have today. But ultimately what I'm trying to say here is that what Denzel is doing on this project is nothing new. Not just because it's literally something from the distant past, but also, again, we've been hearing people reiterate this sort of thing for a minute now. However, Denzel is an artist I would absolutely humor attempting to do something like this, not just because he's a great lyricist and a Southern hip-hop artist himself, but he's also somebody who pays close attention to things like vibes and aesthetics and details. We already see and notice this from every album he's released so far, having a completely different tone and instrumental palette and energy to it. Plus, on top of it, this era of Southern hip-hop has clearly for a long time served as a point of inspiration for a lot of music that Denzel has put out. At the very least, I would hope that Denzel would go into a project like this with the aspiration of capturing this sound accurately. And the fact that he wants to do that is communicated in many ways on this record, but specifically on one bar that comes off of the Black Flag freestyle, where he says, "Yeah, I used to smart talk, but now I had to dumb it down," which I think says something about Denzel's process on this record, even if he is underselling it a little bit. Because obviously the flow and the lyrics on this track are not fast, they're not complex, and it doesn't need to be. It's an homage. Denzel is trying to strike a certain balance, create a particular kind of vibe, and delivering something more complicated than this is not going to do that. He wants to give you something dark and intoxicating and cold-blooded, and he executes that perfectly with this kind of understated, near monotone delivery with a slow tempo and wheezy, dusty horn samples droning in the background, the effect of which is absolutely positively hypnotic. And what's even greater is there's a very intense feature from that Mexican OT on the back end of the track where he is rolling his R's like a motherfucker. But yeah, overall, I think this Black Flag freestyle pretty much lays out what you're in for on the rest of the record pretty clearly. As far as basic elements and vibes, from there, it's really a matter of variation between levels of intensity. You have Hit the Floor, which is like this heavy, super distorted, almost industrial piece of trap that has kind of an old school SoundCloud appeal to it, which of course is why Ski Mask, the slump god, is on it, and he sounds fantastic. So you have moments like that, and you also have Cold Pimp, a sweet oasis in the middle of all of the mischief and mayhem throughout this project, which is a very glamorous, laid-back piece of southern hip-hop with some super rich piano and string samples, buttery vocal leads from none other than Ty Dolla $ign, and then on the back end we have Juicy J bringing some pimpology on a guest verse that's pretty quality too. So yeah, there's quite a bit of contrast among the tracks across this track list, which is only further enhanced by songs like Ultra Shit, the first full track to kick this album off. It's really kind of a take on that classic old school Memphis rap sound, but in sort of a more atmospheric cloud rap kind of way. It sounds like a dream, but it's still packed with catchy flows and one-liners. The pace picks up deeper into the project with Hot One, which has killer features from Tia Corinne, who brings a very interesting inflection to the table. Also A$AP Ferg, who brings along with him his trademark washed out, reverbed, shouty background ad-libs. Things intensify even further on this project with G's up, G's up, G's up, G's up. With all these aggressive in-your-face repetitions, this is exactly the kind of thing that you want on a song like this. It's going to drill that earworm into your head with some creepy synth work and nimble triplet flows too. Now, even though Denzel is dumbing it down on this record and kind of going more for vibes than he is bars, that doesn't mean there aren't standout lyrical moments across the record. Like when he says, "I don't trust nobody because some want me to suffer. Even Jesus called a dude out on his last supper." Also the Cosby bar on this track, the stutter bar on this track, both moments where Denzel is absolutely clever and unhinged. There's also multiple tracks on here like Wish List, where I think he's delivering a lot of food for thought, trying to get people to think more about their stability and their money, and not just like kind of willing that over to any thirsty or attention-hungry woman that might cross their path. And my God, he says, "She got her titties done, and I guess they look all right. They call her Princess Peach. She down in every dude's pipe." Oh my God. Beyond that, I would say the record is a little feature dependent, which I suppose for the most part is fine, especially since Denzel seems to pull some pretty good and standout performances from his guests across the record. He has very appropriate feature choices throughout the project as well, either artists who are directly connected to the eras of hip-hop that he is referencing, or younger ones who clearly have proven to have a reverence for it. Be that Texas rapper Mike Dimes, or A$AP Rocky, or, 2 Chainz, who is obviously a veteran, but his fame and popularity, mainstream fame and popularity, came a bit more recently. So I will say, even if this isn't Denzel's most lyrically impressive project to date, it's certainly not trying to be that. And yeah, it's not necessarily conceptual in a high-minded way, in the way that Taboo or Melt My Eyes is. Denzel's dedication to his craft shines through, because obviously when you pay attention to the finer details and aesthetics of Mischievous South, Denzel Denzel went into this thing with a certain angle in mind, and he had to pay attention to very specific things in order to pull all of that off. He wanted it to sound, again, like a dirty, filthy, old school Southern hip hop mixtape, and it very much does. He nailed that. He wanted it to reflect a certain era of the genre, and that means rapping a certain way. That means favoring certain types of instrumentals. And he most certainly did that with very tasteful, very colorful, very appropriate beats, and he brought on a bunch of features that fit the same vibe too. My biggest issues with this project overall is that it is a tad bit short at 34 minutes, and with it being so heavy on features, when a guest verse is not that great, it does tend to affect the momentum of the album and the track quite a bit. Maxo Cream and Armani White specifically, I thought could have gone a bit harder or done something a bit more standout. But with all that being said, I still think this came out to be a really great project from Denzel, even if on its face it's not quite as original or as personal as a Melt My Eyes or as a Taboo, which is why I'm feeling a decent to strong 8 on this thing. Transition, have you given this project a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Denzel Curry, forever.